3 times she stood before the mating altar. 3 times the kingdom waited for destiny to choose her. 3 times she walked away without a mate. But nobody knew the 4th time would reveal a truth that could change the entire Lycan realm forever. The grand halls of Moonfall Kingdom had never been filled with so much anticipation. Thousands of werewolves gathered beneath the silver glow of the full moon, watching the sacred mating ceremony that had connected generations of alphas, omegas, and Lycan families. For many, this ceremony represented hope. It represented belonging. It represented the moment when destiny revealed where someone truly belonged. But for Lily Anderson, this night carried a different meaning. It was the 3rd time she stood before the ancient altar, surrounded by whispers and uncertain eyes. She had walked this path twice before, and twice the ceremony had ended without a bond. Many believed that an omega without a mate was simply unlucky. Some believed she was destined to remain unnoticed forever. Lily heard those voices, but she refused to let them define her. She stood beneath the moonlight with quiet strength, reminding herself that her worth was never decided by someone else's choice. Growing up in Moonfall territory, Lily had always been different from the omegas admired by noble families. She had no powerful bloodline. She had no influential name. She lived a simple life, helping her neighbors and caring for those who needed kindness. Many overlooked her because they only saw what she lacked. They never noticed the patience in her heart, the courage behind her calm expression, or the compassion she showed even when others failed to show it to her. Across the grand hall, the most powerful figure in the Lycan realm remained unaware of the secret destiny was preparing to reveal. Adrian Blackwood, the Lycan King, watched the ceremony with the responsibility of a ruler who carried centuries of tradition on his shoulders. He had seen countless mating ceremonies before. He had witnessed powerful families celebrate perfect matches and watched kingdoms build alliances through chosen bonds. But tonight felt different. Something about the atmosphere seemed unusual, as if the moon itself was waiting for something no one expected. Lily stepped forward as the ceremony began. The entire hall became silent. Everyone knew her story. Everyone knew this was her 3rd attempt. Some looked at her with sympathy. Others looked away, already expecting disappointment. Yet Lily lifted her chin and remained calm. She was not standing there because she needed approval. She was standing there because she deserved the chance to know her own destiny. As the ancient ceremony continued, a strange feeling passed through the hall. Adrian, who had been watching from his place of honor, suddenly felt something he could not explain. It was not a thought. It was not a decision. It was something deeper, something connected to the very nature of who he was. His attention moved toward the omega standing alone beneath the moonlight. For a moment, the entire world seemed to become quiet. Lily did not notice the change around her. She did not know that the Lycan King had finally looked in her direction. She did not know that the person who had spent years being ignored was about to become the center of a destiny far greater than she ever imagined. Because sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the person fate has been waiting to reveal. The silence inside Moonfall Kingdom's grand ceremony hall felt heavier than ever before. Everyone waited for the ancient ritual to reveal its answer, but nobody expected the moment that was slowly unfolding. Lily Anderson stood beneath the silver moonlight, calm on the outside while carrying years of disappointment inside her heart. She had learned how to stand alone. She had learned how to continue moving forward, even when the world around her believed she was forgotten by destiny. For years, Lily had wondered why the mating bond had never appeared for her. She watched others find their partners, celebrate their futures, and receive the acceptance she had always hoped for. But instead of becoming bitter, Lily chose a different path. She focused on becoming someone she could be proud of. She helped her village, supported families who needed assistance, and offered kindness even when people failed to understand her. What others considered weakness was actually the quiet strength that defined her. Across the ceremony hall, Adrian Blackwood could not take his attention away from the Omega standing before the altar. The Lycan King had spent his entire life surrounded by powerful families and influential figures. He knew how to recognize ambition. He knew how to identify those who wanted to stand close to the throne. But Lily was different. She did not look at him with expectations. She did not seek his attention. She simply stood there with a peaceful expression, as if her value existed regardless of what the ceremony decided. That small detail surprised him more than he expected. Adrian had always believed destiny would reveal itself through a powerful moment, something impossible to misunderstand. Yet the feeling growing inside him was quiet and unfamiliar. It was as if something ancient within him was slowly awakening. Meanwhile, Lily remained unaware of the attention surrounding her. She believed the ceremony would end the same way it had before. She prepared herself to accept whatever happened with grace. She had already survived 2 disappointments. She could survive another. But this time something was different. The atmosphere inside the hall changed. The elders who guided the ceremony exchanged uncertain looks. The moonlight above the altar seemed brighter than before, and a feeling of anticipation spread through the crowd. Nobody understood what was happening. Even Adrian, the most powerful Lycan in the realm, could not explain why his instincts were suddenly focused on one person. The Omega everyone had overlooked. The woman many believed had no place among the chosen. Lily slowly lifted her eyes and noticed the Lycan King watching her. For a brief moment their gazes met. She saw no judgment in his expression. She saw curiosity, surprise, and something she could not describe. Adrian saw something he had never expected to find. Behind Lily's quiet nature was a strength that did not need recognition. She was not trying to prove she belonged. She simply belonged because of who she was. As the ceremony continued, whispers moved through the hall. People began wondering why the Lycan King seemed different. Why was his attention drawn toward an Omega that others had ignored? Nobody had the answer yet. But destiny had already begun revealing a truth hidden beneath years of misunderstanding. The third time Lily stood before the mating altar was supposed to be another moment of rejection. Instead, it became the moment when the entire kingdom began to question everything they thought they knew. The ceremony hall remained frozen in silence as everyone waited for the ancient ritual to reveal its final answer. For generations, the mating ceremony had been considered the strongest symbol of destiny in Moonfall Kingdom. Families built their hopes around it. Young werewolves dreamed of the moment when the moon would reveal the person meant for them. But for Lily Anderson, this moment had always carried a different kind of weight. She knew what the crowd expected. She knew many believed they were about to witness another disappointment. Yet Lily stood beneath the moonlight with the same quiet dignity she had carried through every difficult moment of her life. She refused to let the opinions of others become the measure of her worth. While the ceremony continued, Adrian Blackwood watched carefully from his place among the royal family. The Lycan King had always been surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Some wanted influence. Some wanted recognition. Some wanted the power that came with standing beside the ruler of the realm. But Lily wanted none of those things. She did not even seem aware of how many eyes were focused on her. That was what made Adrian curious. The Omega standing before him was not trying to impress anyone. She was not pretending to be someone she was not. She was simply being herself, and somehow that felt more powerful than any display of status. The elders continued the final steps of the ceremony, but an unusual energy filled the room. The ancient symbols surrounding the altar began to glow softly, catching everyone's attention. The gathered crowd exchanged confused looks. Something was happening, but no one understood why. Lily felt a strange warmth in the air around her. She had experienced the ceremony twice before, and both times she had felt only emptiness afterward. But this time felt different. She could not explain it, and she did not want to create false hope for herself. After years of disappointment, she had learned to protect her heart. Adrian noticed the change immediately. His connection to the ancient Lycan instincts within him had always been strong, but he had never experienced anything like this before. It was not about power. It was not about status. It was a feeling of recognition, as if some hidden part of destiny had finally revealed itself. The Lycan King looked across the hall at the Omega who had been ignored by everyone else, and he realized something important. The world had judged Lily by what she did not have. They saw a simple life, a quiet personality, and an ordinary background. They never saw the strength behind her kindness or the courage behind her patience. Adrian understood that he had spent years studying the qualities of great leaders, but the person standing before him carried many of those qualities without ever seeking praise. As whispers grew louder throughout the hall, Lily lowered her gaze, uncertain about what was happening. She had never wanted attention from the kingdom. She had only wanted a place where she could exist without being judged. But destiny was no longer allowing her to remain invisible. The moment everyone believed would prove Lily had been forgotten became the moment that revealed she had never been forgotten at all. Somewhere beyond tradition, beyond expectations, and beyond the opinions of the crowd, a new chapter of Moonfall Kingdom was beginning. The ancient ceremony that was meant to reveal a simple answer had become the moment that changed everything inside Moonfall Kingdom. As the glowing symbols around the altar slowly faded, the entire hall remained silent, waiting to understand what destiny had just revealed. Lily Anderson stood quietly beneath the moonlight, unsure why the atmosphere around her had suddenly changed. She had prepared herself for another disappointment. She had expected to leave the ceremony the same way she had before, with no bond, and no place beside anyone. But this time the feeling in the air was different. For the first time in years, Lily sensed that she was not being overlooked. She was being seen. Adrian Blackwood remained focused on the Omega before him. The Lycan King had spent his life learning how to control his emotions, especially in front of the kingdom. A ruler could not be guided by uncertainty. A king had to remain calm, thoughtful, and responsible. Yet standing there watching Lily, Adrian felt something he could not simply ignore. He noticed the small details that others never cared to see. The way she remained respectful despite the whispers around her. The way she did not demand attention even when the entire hall was watching. The way she carried herself with a quiet confidence that did not come from pride, but from knowing who she was. To everyone else, Lily was the Omega who had been rejected twice before, and was now facing another uncertain moment. To Adrian, she was beginning to look like someone who had been misunderstood for far too long. As the ceremony concluded, the elders gathered to discuss the unusual event. They had witnessed countless mating ceremonies throughout their lives, but they had never seen such a powerful reaction from the ancient bond. The kingdom's traditions were built on history, yet history did not always reveal the complete truth. Sometimes destiny appeared in ways that challenged everything people believed. Lily quietly stepped away from the altar, believing the moment had passed. She did not want to create rumors or expectations. She had spent years learning that hope could sometimes lead to disappointment. But before she could leave the hall, Adrian approached her. The entire room became still. Many nobles watched with curiosity because the Lycan King rarely gave personal attention to anyone outside his royal circle. Lily looked at him with surprise. She expected judgment. She expected questions. Instead, she saw something different. "You have carried yourself with more strength than most people I have met," Adrian said calmly. Lily lowered her eyes and replied, "Strength is sometimes just learning how to continue when things do not go the way you hoped." Her answer stayed with him. It was simple, but it revealed the depth of her character. Adrian realized that Lily did not need someone to prove her value. She had already proven it through every challenge she faced. The people around her had mistaken silence for weakness and kindness for fragility. They had been wrong. As the night continued, rumors moved through Moonfall Kingdom. Everyone wanted to know why the Lycan King had spoken to an Omega who had spent years being ignored. But nobody knew the truth yet. Nobody knew that Lily's story was connected to a secret hidden for generations. Nobody knew that the Omega they had dismissed was carrying a destiny far greater than anyone imagined. And nobody knew that Adrian Blackwood, the most powerful Lycan in the realm, was about to discover that the greatest strength was not found in power, but in the person who could change the heart behind the crown. The days following the ancient ceremony brought a new feeling across Moonfall Kingdom. The kingdom that once saw Lily Anderson as an ordinary Omega began looking at her with curiosity and uncertainty. Nobody understood why the Lycan King had shown interest in someone who had spent years being ignored. The nobles searched for answers, while the villagers simply wondered if destiny had finally given Lily the recognition she deserved. But Lily herself remained unchanged. She returned to her quiet life, continuing to help those around her and refusing to let sudden attention change who she was. She had spent years building her strength without anyone watching, and she did not need a crown to prove her value. Adrian Blackwood noticed this more than anything. After the ceremony, he expected Lily to seek answers, ask for recognition, or use the situation to improve her position. Instead, she stepped away from the attention and continued living with the same kindness she had always shown. For the Lycan King, this was something rare. He had spent his life surrounded by people who carefully chose every word around him. Many showed respect because of his title, but very few showed genuine care for the person behind the crown. Lily was different. She treated him as someone who could be understood, not simply someone who had to be admired. As Adrian investigated the unusual reaction from the ancient ceremony, he discovered something hidden within the history of Moonfall Kingdom. Old records spoke of a forgotten bloodline connected to the earliest Lycan families. The legends described an Omega whose presence would not be recognized through status or influence, but through the strength of her spirit and the purity of her intentions. For generations, many believed that bloodline had disappeared. But the signs surrounding Lily suggested that the legend might have never ended. Adrian studied the records carefully, realizing that the truth was far greater than he expected. Lily was not special because destiny had suddenly chosen her. She was special because she had remained kind, patient, and compassionate despite a world that constantly failed to appreciate her. The ancient bond had not created her worth. It had only revealed what had always existed. Meanwhile, Lily struggled with the sudden changes around her. People who once ignored her now approached her with questions and admiration. Some apologized for the way they had treated her, while others still wondered why the Lycan King would notice someone like her. Lily accepted their words with grace, but she never forgot the years when she stood alone. Those experiences shaped her into the person she was. One evening, Adrian met Lily outside the village gardens. The peaceful surroundings reminded him that she was most comfortable away from the expectations of the palace. "You do not seem interested in changing your life because of what happened," Adrian said. Lily smiled softly. A person should not become valuable only after someone important notices them. Everyone deserves respect before they are recognized. Her answer stayed with Adrian long after their conversation ended. The Lycan King had ruled for years believing that power was the greatest responsibility a leader could carry. But Lily showed him another truth. The greatest responsibility was seeing the people others overlooked. As the moon rose above Moonfall Kingdom, Adrian began to understand that the Omega standing before him was not simply connected to an ancient legend. She represented something the kingdom had forgotten. True strength was never about standing above others. It was about having the heart to see their worth. And soon, the entire realm would discover why destiny had waited so long to reveal Lily Anderson. The truth hidden within Moonfall Kingdom's ancient records began to change the way everyone looked at Lily Anderson. The Omega who had once stood alone during the mating ceremony was now connected to a mystery that reached back through generations. Yet despite the growing attention around her, Lily remained the same person she had always been. She did not walk differently because people finally noticed her. She did not speak with pride because the kingdom began to recognize her. She simply continued being the kind and thoughtful person she had always been. Adrian Blackwood admired that more than anything. The Lycan King had expected the discovery of Lily's hidden connection to bring excitement, but what surprised him was that Lily herself seemed less interested in the legend than everyone else. She cared more about the people around her than the history written about her. She cared more about helping others than receiving praise. To Adrian, that revealed the true reason destiny had drawn his attention toward her. Lily was not extraordinary because of an ancient story. The ancient story mattered because it described someone like Lily. As days passed, Adrian spent more time learning about the life Lily had lived before the kingdom knew her name. He discovered that she had quietly helped struggling families in Moonfall territory. She had shared what little she had with others who needed support. She had offered encouragement to people who felt forgotten because she understood what it meant to feel unseen. Every discovery made Adrian question the way the kingdom had measured value for so long. They had looked at family names, wealth, and influence. They had judged people by what was visible on the surface. But Lily showed him that the most important qualities were often the ones nobody noticed at first. Meanwhile, the nobles of Moonfall Kingdom faced their own uncertainty. Many had once believed that an Omega without a mate had little importance in royal matters. Now they had to accept that their assumptions had been wrong. Some found it difficult to change their opinions, but others began to see Lily differently. They started noticing the qualities Adrian had already recognized. One evening, Adrian invited Lily to walk through the royal gardens. Unlike the grand halls where everyone watched their every move, The gardens offered a peaceful place where they could speak honestly. "You have never tried to prove yourself to anyone," Adrian said. Lily looked at the flowers surrounding them and replied, "I spent so much time trying to be accepted that I forgot I was already enough. I do not want to spend my life chasing approval." Her words stayed with Adrian. He realized that Lily possessed something many powerful people lacked. She had found peace without needing the world to confirm her value. For years, Adrian had carried the responsibility of protecting the kingdom and making decisions that affected countless lives. But Lily reminded him that leadership was not only about strength, it was also about compassion and understanding. The connection between them continued to grow, but Adrian knew he had to be careful. Lily had spent years being hurt by rejection, and he did not want her to believe she was valued only because of a destiny written long ago. He wanted her to know that he respected her because of who she already was. As the moon shone above the kingdom, Adrian made a silent promise. He would not allow tradition, expectations, or the opinions of others to decide Lily's future. The Omega who had been overlooked for so long had already proven her worth. Now it was time for the entire kingdom to see what the Lycan King had discovered. The days after Adrian Blackwood made his silent promise became a period of change throughout Moonfall Kingdom. The kingdom was beginning to see Lily Anderson in a different light, but Lily herself remained focused on the same things that had always mattered to her. She continued visiting the villages, listening to families, and offering support wherever she could. She did not seek the attention that came with being connected to the Lycan King. She simply believed that kindness should not depend on someone's status. Adrian watched her closely and realized that this was the very reason he trusted her. Lily never acted differently because people were watching. She never changed because a crown was near. Her actions came from who she truly was. For a ruler who had spent his life surrounded by appearances and expectations, that honesty was something rare. As the kingdom slowly adjusted to the changes surrounding Lily, the royal council requested a formal gathering. They wanted to understand the connection between the Lycan King and the Omega who had surprised the entire realm. Many questions remained unanswered, and tradition demanded clarity. Adrian entered the council chamber knowing that this moment was not only about his own feelings. It was about accepting responsibility for a kingdom that had spent generations judging people by their position rather than their character. The elders spoke about the ancient records and the unusual signs that appeared during the ceremony. They explained that history had always described a special bond, but many had misunderstood its meaning. The purpose of destiny was not to create a perfect image for others to admire. It was to bring together people who could help each other become better. Adrian listened carefully before speaking. "For too long we have looked at what people have instead of who they are," he said. "We judged an Omega because of her place in society, but we ignored the strength she carried every day." His words surprised many in the chamber because the Lycan King was not simply announcing a decision. He was challenging a belief that had existed for generations. Meanwhile, Lily felt uncertain about the attention surrounding her. She had never wanted to become a symbol or a figure that others discussed. She only wanted to live honestly and peacefully. Adrian understood this when he visited her later that evening. "You seem worried about everything changing," he said gently. Lily looked toward the quiet fields beyond the village. "I am grateful for kindness, but I do not want people to respect me only because they think I am important now. I want them to understand that I was worthy of respect before anyone knew my story." Adrian smiled because her answer confirmed what he had already learned. Lily did not want admiration built on rumors or legends. She wanted acceptance based on truth. That night, Adrian realized his greatest responsibility was not simply protecting the kingdom. It was helping the kingdom understand a lesson that Lily had lived her entire life. A person's value did not begin when others finally noticed them. It existed from the very beginning. As the moonlight covered Moonfall Kingdom, the relationship between the Lycan King and the Omega continued to grow stronger. But more importantly, the kingdom itself was beginning to change. The person they once overlooked was becoming the person who showed them how to see. The changes spreading through Moonfall Kingdom did not happen overnight, but each day brought new signs that the people were beginning to understand a different kind of strength. Lily Anderson, the Omega who had once stood alone beneath the ceremony altar, was now seen by many as a symbol of hope. Yet she never allowed the attention to change her. She continued waking early, walking through the villages, and helping those who needed support. To Lily, kindness was never a way to gain recognition. It was simply the way she believed people should treat one another. Adrian Blackwood noticed this every time he visited her. The Lycan King had ruled with confidence for years, but Lily showed him a side of leadership he had not fully understood before. She reminded him that a kingdom was not built only through decisions made inside a palace. It was built through the trust of the people who lived beyond those walls. As their connection grew, Adrian began spending more time learning about the world Lily knew. He walked through the villages, listened to ordinary families, and saw the challenges that many people quietly carried. Before meeting Lily, he believed being a strong ruler meant always having the answer. Now he understood that a great leader also needed the humility to listen. One evening Adrian and Lily stood near the old gardens surrounding the palace. The same gardens where many royal conversations had taken place for generations now became a place where two people could speak honestly. "You have changed the way I see the kingdom," Adrian said. Lily looked surprised. "I have not done anything special." Adrian smiled gently. "That is exactly what makes you different. You never tried to prove you were important. You simply showed who you were." Lily thought about those words. For so long, she had believed she needed to become someone else to be accepted. She had watched others receive admiration because of their families, their influence, or their positions. But now she understood that her journey had never been about becoming worthy. She had always been worthy. The kingdom was simply learning to see it. Meanwhile, some nobles who had once questioned Lily began to recognize the mistake behind their old beliefs. They saw that the Omega they ignored had qualities they valued in every great leader. She was patient when others were impatient. She was compassionate when others were focused only on appearances. She carried herself with dignity even when she received no praise. The lessons Lily taught were not written in ancient books or royal records. They were shown through her everyday actions. As the seasons changed in Moonfall Kingdom, the bond between Adrian and Lily became a reminder that destiny was not about perfection. It was about finding someone who brought out the best within you. Adrian had once believed that power separated a ruler from everyone else. Lily showed him that true strength created connection instead. She never asked him to become less powerful. She simply reminded him that power meant little without understanding. The people of Moonfall Kingdom began to tell a different story about their Lycan King and the Omega who changed the realm. It was no longer a story about someone who was finally chosen. It was a story about someone whose value had existed all along, waiting for the world to recognize it. And as the moon continued to shine above the kingdom, everyone slowly understood the truth that Lily had carried in her heart from the beginning. A person does not become special when others finally notice them. They become recognized when others finally learn how to see. Years passed, and the story of Lily Anderson and Adrian Blackwood became one of the most remembered chapters in Moonfall Kingdom's history. What began as a moment of uncertainty during a sacred ceremony became a lesson that changed the way people understood destiny, leadership, and worth. The Omega who had once stood alone before the entire kingdom was now someone many looked to for inspiration. Yet Lily never forgot the quiet days before anyone knew her name. She remembered what it felt like to be unseen, and that memory remained the reason she continued showing kindness to everyone around her. She never believed that becoming recognized meant becoming better than others. She believed it meant having the chance to help more people. Adrian saw that every day. The Lycan King had once carried the weight of the crown, believing that strength meant having control over every decision. But Lily taught him that the strongest leaders were not those who stood above everyone else. They were the ones willing to stand beside their people and understand their struggles. Together, they helped create a kingdom where people were valued for who they were rather than what they possessed. The old beliefs that once separated different groups slowly began to fade. Families started teaching their children that kindness was not weakness, and that a person's heart could reveal more than their status ever could. One evening, many years after the ceremony that changed everything, Lily and Adrian returned to the same gardens where they had shared some of their most honest conversations. The moonlight covered the kingdom just as it had on the night their paths first crossed. Adrian looked across the peaceful lands and remembered the person Lily had been when nobody believed in her. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if that night had ended differently?" he asked. Lily smiled softly. Maybe we would have found another path. But I believe every moment brought us exactly where we needed to be. Adrian looked at her with gratitude. He knew that Destiny had not chosen Lily because she needed to be saved. Destiny had brought them together because they both had something to learn from each other. Lily showed him compassion beyond power. Adrian showed her that the world could eventually recognize the value she had always carried. Their story became a reminder throughout the realm that rejection did not define a person's future. Sometimes the moments that feel like the end are simply the beginning of something greater. The Omega who was once overlooked became a symbol of hope. The Lycan King who once believed he had all the answers learned the importance of listening. And the kingdom that once judged too quickly learned to look deeper. In the end, their bond was not remembered because a powerful king chose an Omega. It was remembered because two people discovered the truth that had been there all along. Real strength was gentle. True leadership came from understanding. And the greatest destinies were often hidden in the places where nobody thought to look.